We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping good parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness.
Good evening and welcome to yet another Family Fest 2025 discussion. Over the past few weeks, we have been treated to many riveting and insightful deliberations on grave and timely issues affecting our families. Tonight is no different as we seek to shine a light on navigating family dynamics, tackling cultural and social pressures. I am Angelina Cotton, your moderator this evening, and joining me is a very competent and experienced rather panelist. Before I give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, let me give you an overview of what we will be unpacking this evening. In today's rapidly changing world, families often find themselves navigating a complex web of cultural and social pressures. These pressures can manifest in various ways, influencing family dynamics such as in relationships and the overall well-being of its members. So by understanding and addressing these challenges, we can foster healthier and more resilient family units that are better equipped to thrive in the face of societal demands. So, with this discussion tonight, we hope to highlight and explore the intricate nature of these pressures, how they impact and affect family dynamics. We want to provide strategies for coping and eliminating them if possible. And we want to ensure you capture rich nuggets that can translate into stronger and more cohesive family relationships rather, and in turn, a better society. So, to help us to accomplish this goal, I'd like to welcome and present to you this competent and experienced panelists, as said before, who would share their diverse perspective on this topic. We have the lioness among the lions, Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, Mr. Nigel Jules, and the only man who receives all my admiration, Mr. Jason Cotton. Welcome, welcome, and kindly tell our viewers a little bit about who you are. I will start with Dr. Joan. You have to unmute.
Okay. Good evening, all, and welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Joan Spencer Hernandez, right in my office at Mona Campus, UWI. I'm currently the manager of the Joint Board of Teacher Education. My background is educational psychology and special education. I work primarily with young people. And so I'm primarily boys, because I have a passion for boys' education and boys' behavior and getting them from one stage to the next and becoming competent, reliable, good citizens. So that's me. I have one son and a husband. But yes, so quite a bit of experience within the region, working not just in Jamaica, but throughout the region.
Very well. And we'll go over to Nigel.
Yes, a pleasant good evening to one and all, to those locally and overseas. My name is Nigel, no middle name Jules. I am a speaker by profession. I love to talk, so I have learned how to utilize it to impact lives. My modus operandi for motivational speaking, team building, facilitation, business is fun, experiential learning, and games. I am the managing director of a company called Seed Legacy that uses all of the above, as well as a ministry called Purpose 180 Foundation that we have been in. Actually, September will make 10 years we have been in existence. We originally started working with boys only, and in 2019 we would have started working with young ladies as well. So I would have spent 3 years at the Leicester Vaughan School full time, and thereafter I would have been working part time. So I have a number of years in the belt working with children, youth, and families. I have a passion for the things of God, and I believe there is no separation between life and ministry and the word. So I put it all together and I serve the youth of the nation.
All right, very well. And last but not least, Jason Cotton.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Cotton. I'm an economist by profession. I've been an economist for more than 20 years, believe it or not, right? And I've worked for a variety of organizations, academic, international, regional organizations in that capacity. Beyond that, I'm a father of two lovely children, Jonathan and Cyril Lee, and married to a beautiful young lady who has captured my attention and heart.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. All right, thank you. Thank you all so much for introducing yourself and coming on the panel this evening. We will just get right into our topic. And it is, as we said before, our topic is navigating cultural and social pressures within the family. Now, it is natural that if we are part of a particular nation or society, families adopt values and customs and traditions and so forth. Some can be good, while some can translate into unhealthy pressures within the family construct. And they can affect individuals in the family, and eventually it boomerangs back into society. So, my first question is to ask you to help us to identify some of those common cultural and social pressures that are prevalent in families today. Each person can share from their perspective or your area of expertise. So, I'm going to start with Nigel. You can go ahead.
Yes, definitely. I believe that the Barbadian culture, or culture as it relates to families presently, has been lost for the most part. With the advancement of tech, and I'm speaking from my area of expertise. Let's say the last 6 7 years working within my program, we were intentionally with youth and their families for 1 year, right? And with being in that environment, we would recognize, one, we're dealing with single parent homes. So having that nuclear family, that both parent in the home, that has been lost. So you're now working with a culture, I believe, that is lost. We have a parent, whether it's a female or male, playing the role of both parents. I do not believe that a mother can teach a boy to be a man, and a father teach a girl to be a woman. So we have a culture that is dying or has died and is now trying to be resurrected, because there are a number of entities out there trying to help reinstill values, basic values that would have been brought up through that community and that family oriented upbringing, that is now trying to be reestablished. So I think we're battling with things like social media and other entities that has replaced the parent in the home, replaced the family in the community, whereby you had that upbringing that was spread across the community. You're now having it being done through social media and the arts and etc.
Yes. Um, Dr. Joan Spencer?
Yeah, let me turn back my mic. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I, I wanted to turn back the camera on, but what is happening here? All right, let me go ahead. I'll turn it on in a minute. What is a culture though? When we speak about culture, what are we speaking about? Yes, we're thinking about the beliefs that can range from historical beliefs, right down to modern beliefs. Some of these things have to do with unfortunate things. For example, obia, when people think, oh, somebody did me something, so we don't take responsibility for what is happening in our lives because somehow we think we are not in charge. And so we have several different beliefs. Yes, you can walk on that ladder, or you see a black cat, whatever it is that we tend to, and it passes down from one generation to the next. I work with young boys, that's 14, 15. Yeah, I still call them young. And when I hear some of the things that they say that I thought by now would have died out of the culture, I can't believe it. I work with this young athlete, and he's saying to me, he jumped over a hurdle, which he shouldn't have because he's not a hurdler, he's a long jumper. He jumped over the hurdle and he scratched he hurt his leg. And then he's going to say to me, you see, they set it for me, They set it for me. Somebody don't want me to jump. They want me to break my foot. And I'm like, stop. But he's saying, Miss, you don't understand. Auntie, you don't understand. So these things just go from one generation to the next. Our values, when we talk about culture, our values, and I heard what you say is happening in Barbados, same thing in Jamaica. I'm not saying that our values from way back when, that there shouldn't be modifications and what have you and so on. I remember back in the days, boys used to wear these tight pants and they used to call it gun mouth pants. Now they have the big old one and then it's dropping behind down below there. I don't know what. And so they say, oh, lighten up, this is different. So our values are connected to what we wear, what we eat, and so on. We talk about our practices. What are the things that we practice within our own cultures? And customs, traditions, and then there's a material culture that is driving our young people crazy. Older people too, because it's all about what can you grab, get. And it's not necessarily rooted in education, which is what we heard when we were growing up. Oh, education is going to make you, and so on. And another thing that we learned was manners will take you through the world. I don't know where that is right now, or social behavior, or worldview, and so on. So there are many different perspectives when it comes to culture, what we believe in terms of our religious beliefs, and so on. But we will discuss further.
Okay, thank you for giving a context and of the cultural and social um, challenges that you face. And so, Jason, you can go ahead as well to share with us what are some of those cultural and social pressures that families face today, what are prevalent in families today.
Okay, thank you, Angelina. So I want to just build on something that Dr. Spencer said when she spoke about the material culture. And I think, I see that from my vantage point, particularly in terms of, what we refer to as work-life balance, So, there's a pressure now in the culture to succeed professionally, right? And I think people are well-intentioned. We want to succeed, we want to work, we want to do well so that we can provide for ourselves and our households, right? But oftentimes that deep desire to succeed often means long working hours. It means you're separated from your family. Sometimes it means travel for long periods of time, right? Leaving the family with less time, right, for bonding and relationships. And we try to compensate for that by material things, right? And I think that that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Another challenge I see is related to the other one is consumerism and materialism. I was even speaking to my daughter who's 9 just recently, and she was telling me about what kind of car you drive and who daddy drives what car. And I was amazed that she knows what car is nice, and I was like, and my son has a little replica of a Jaguar car, and she was saying this is a nice car. So you see, even at that age, right? They're getting a sense as to the values that the society pushes in terms of what is nice, what is expensive, and the dangerous part of that is that a lot of times people begin to ascribe their sense of being and sense of self-worth with those things. And that's very different from when I grew up, right? Or when I grew up, it was very, very different. There wasn't that pressure there in society. There's a famous cup now. My wife knows it now. Children in school need to have it. There's a fancy cup, and if you don't have it, then your parents probably not in parents, and they have all these pressures, right? They have all these pressures. So the last one I want to touch on is social media influence, right? There's this pressure. People want social media, they present the best pictures. I was speaking to my wife, whoever she is, and I don't take a lot of pictures, right? But she was telling me I need to take more pictures because my pictures not Facebook ready, okay? And there's this pressure in society to have a family and pictures that always look perfect, and and if you don't have that, you feel as if, well, something is wrong with you. So these are just a few I would say.
All right. As you mentioned, values in terms of materialism and the cars, I just remembered that there's a trend now about Bugatti. So I don't know if anyone you've seen the Bugatti trend. And so you see, by these simple things on social media, it's teaching. It says I woke up in a Bugatti, and so it's teaching people what to value. You mentioned about when you were younger. I want to bring that to the fore. I want us to juxtapose for a little moment to think about how family dynamics have evolved over the decades with these new and emerging pressures. So we want to kind of compare just for a few minutes, what it looked like before and how have these new and emerging pressures come to change the dynamics in the family, or do we see recurring themes? Um, Nigel, you would like to go with that question?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that I wrote down from Jason was the mention of values, and when he began to talk about social media, um, I when I think about how I was raised, I believe I am extremely versatile in terms of entering different environments, but that came from a foundation of respecting, and it's still ingrained in me today, respecting my elders, calling individual by miss or sir or ma'am according to the country I'm in. Those basic simple things. And when I look at this generation, I will say for the last 5 years or so, I so I was recently leading a hike. This was Friday, and it was for young people. I'm serving at a camp here in Barbados, and as the hike leader, I was walking through the trail with the young people, and one young lady that I knew from very young, last, let's say, 6 7 years. She's about 12 now, I believe. Brother, I'm like, who you calling brother? I'm how many years your senior? Yes, I love your family like if it's my family. I am known as Uncle Nigel. You're calling me brother. I'm like, what? Yeah. So just the basic respect has been out the door. And what can I, in my limited vision and scope, um consider to be the root cause? Social media. Why? Because when you look at the trends that they follow, and the one person spoke earlier about the trends, how persons dressing up, the dress has changed. Yeah. How they speak, when you listen to how they speak, I think that that phrase you were using is from an actual song, right? Talking about the Bugatti. What are the influences in the lives of the children today? I believe that is the root of where values come from. Because when you look, and this is not attacking parents, because parents are now waking up and trying to be more involved, right? Because of a shift, because being in a single parent home, you have one parent being out more than in, because they're trying to bring in bread to take care of the family. But what is now replacing that family time? 2 years ago, we did a survey in our organization on time. That was the only factor for it, the survey, time. And it was shown that parents spend less than 1 hour with their children a day. And the predominance of that time is spent giving instructions, commands, or asking questions.
Yes, that is
The
certain. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'll wrap it up now.
Yes.
The time where you used to have families sitting together and eating and having discussions and talking about the day, all of that is gone. It is a good morning. Did you brush your teeth? Did you bathe? Did you, etc., etc., etc. And that is being replaced by peer pressure, by music, and the devices. I'll tag someone else.
Yes. So you've mentioned so far as social media, as well as that work-life balance situation
Yeah.
being the challenge here. Anyone would like to add? I give you an opportunity to add at least one more to this question.
Well, when I compare what was happening then, we had more extended family homes. So there was a grandma or grandpa, someone, or aunts, uncles, who shared in the raising of our children. That is slowly disappearing from the Caribbean because our grandparents now are in their 30s and they have their lives to live. So the extended family that helped to cushion you, help to grow this child, is something that is dying. There are some things that have improved since then, because back then you could not spare the rod to spoil a child. So corporal punishment was the order of the day. That has changed a lot. I am not saying it has brought anything positive, because we should have replaced it with something that is still going to structure how this child is going to be growing up. But I look around the table and I see everybody, we're going to eat and everybody's on their phone. There's no communication and so on. So communication has suffered in our families because we now communicate via this cell phone. So those are some of the things, and I share the whole matter of respect. You know, I demand respect and I give it to when I work with families and boys especially. So I show them a lot of respect, because sometimes as adults we do not show them the level of respect, so they give us back what we give them. So we have to be careful. But
Very well said.
family and sorry, the community family. They had no phones back then, but you did something at the end of the road. When you got home, your family knew about it, because the community,
Accountability, yes.
they would speak with you, but no community member now can talk to any child. You don't do that. But back then, the community helped to raise a child.
With a child, very well. I'll just jump to my other question, and I'll ask Jason Cotton to come in here. As it relates to, you mentioned in your area of you mentioned the economic pressures and so on. Can you just give us a little bit more as to how do we see this impacting the family? How is it directly impacting the family relationship?
Sure, no problem. But just before that, I just wanted to say that another thing I've noticed, right, is the shifting structures based on what you mentioned before. the nuclear family is no more, right? And even as I have children, I'm conscious of the fact that my children will interact with children with various family structures, um, single parent, blended families, same-sex families, um,
Is it in relation?
multi-generational households, etc. Right? And I have to kind of prepare them for this world, right? Because of course, um, I would have my own values, but they would be interacting with children who who have these family structures, right? And I think that's a major change in our Caribbean that's becoming more and more prevalent. Now, in terms of your question about how does the economic affect uh, the social, etc. For me, a lot of what we a lot of the economic changes in the Caribbean region are really driven by economic changes outside. That's just the way that our economies are made up. We're very dependent on um, the global north, the US, the UK, Canada for a lot of what we eat. We're very dependent on them for our foreign exchange, via tourism, or whether it is um, if you're energy economy, we're talking about international commodity prices. The point I'm making is that a lot of our economic, what happens in our economy is externally influenced. And I've observed that social, it's the same thing, right? A lot of what we consider, as Dr. Spencer was talking about, our norms and values, a lot of that is also imported now, right? A lot of that is also coming from the global north, and particularly because of social media. So the relationship, I think, is two ways, right? The economic could affect the social. So what I mean by that is that if you have a difficult economy, right? People don't have jobs, etc. Right? You're gonna have adverse effects on poverty levels, right? You're gonna have adverse effects on inequality. You're gonna have adverse effects on people's decisions, right? For example, if people go to university or whatever, educate themselves, and they can't get a good job, right? A job that helps them to, buy a house, buy a car, take care of their family. That causes certain kinds of pressures in society, right? And then you have another sphere of people. What about young people who think that the jobs available to them um, not bringing in the money quick enough or fast enough, right? And they're seeing other life options. For example, the pusher man by the corner, and they see him living a lifestyle whereby he seems to be blossoming. I mean, some may opt into illegal activities because that seems to be a more viable path. So you have that influence, right? But then you have the social influencing the economic, because and that meaning that the values, I was talking about my daughter, she's looking at television, etc., and taking in these values that are bombarding her, right? Now, I try to get the girl to suck a mango, she wants strawberries. You understand the kind of problems we have in society here, right? The local things no longer become um they have little demand for them, and they begin to demand the culture, the way they speak, the words they use. All of this begins to change because we're having, I believe, in my humble opinion, a kind of cultural erosion in the Caribbean, right? And we seem to be some countries more than others, admittedly. Jamaicans tend to be doing, they're holding on to the culture, I must say. They tend to do that. They tend to do that very well. But in a lot of societies, we giving up our culture, and I'm talking about culture in what we're talking about, like what we eat, right? The food. We want Wendy's and Starbucks and Popeyes and all of these things, right? And we no longer want breadfruit and dasheen You understand what's happening, right? So I see the thing happening both ways. And that causes a pressure because of choices have changed now. People's consumption, when they go to the supermarket, you have to pay more for those things, right? And that is causing economic pressure on family.
And
Right.
may I
Go ahead, Anne.
in terms of the food, that switch that we have made has caused an increase in the incidence of diabetes, hypertension, everything, the fast food culture. And you mentioned breadfruit. It is one of the most valuable, nutritious thing that we have, but those things are going through the door. So when we adopt this culture, this new culture, and we feed the children a lot of what is called junk food, which is easy to run out and get, and it doesn't encourage family togetherness, and just throw the box here and throw the box there. The other spin-off from that is unhealthy eating habits that will, in the long run, cause major health issues.
Right. As you're there on that point, I would like to build on that as you also tell us about the how do these pressures affect the family, the children's upbringing and education. You mentioned some before, but you can just give us a little bit more on how is their education affected directly.
Okay, so when we have these external pressures, yes, and we learned a lot during COVID too, when our children had to be online, and parents after a while just didn't know what to do with their children because they didn't know them very well. Yes, so the limited time that we're spending with the children that's impacting their academic performance, because the support that you should be getting from home is just not there. While the mom and the dad, everybody's working, the kids, I know, for example, in Jamaica, where the persons who are wealthy, they'll pay a teacher to come live in their home to help with homework, to help to prepare the child for school, that sort of thing. So the family is broken while the rush is to go enrich self. So nothing is wrong with trying to ensure that your family is well fed, well taken care of, and so on. But if you're absent from your children's lives, then the problems. I remember this young man that I worked with, one of our top performing schools in Jamaica, and he decided to rebel against what he saw was a problem in his family, where his dad was involved in a relationship that he knew about. And it caused problem because the children of that family, they're his friends. So when we put that pressure with the choices that we make, the children, and what he started to do, regress, do no work in school, even though he was quite a brilliant young man. So there are many things that we do, or many trips, and we are away from our children. We're on constantly on Zoom, doing other kinds of meetings and so on. We're absent from their lives, and they do crazy things to get our attention. So what's raising them? Cartoons, SpongeBob SquarePants, yeah, and all these others where they're learning subliminal messages coming through at them, and sometimes not subliminal, direct change of lifestyle. So they're learning things that are just outside of our Caribbean culture because we're not there. The minute I started to watch SpongeBob SquarePants and realized some of the messages, I was like, I don't think this is something that he or son should be watching, because it's teaching you a different lifestyle. You don't even get a chance to grow up and think for yourself and make your own decisions. So we have to be more present in their lives. Yes. Find the time for the little family trips. Find the time to just put away all the gadgets. Find the time to hopscotch with them. Go back to play jacks. Do whatever. No, a lot of these children, they don't know what jacks is, and I'm not saying they must know all of these things, but these are things that you do together. This you do on your own, or you may do it with someone in New Zealand. But the thing is that when a family can find things to do together, and I tell you this, the kids enjoy it. because mommy, daddy, I didn't even know. Sometimes I said to my son, all right, teach me the latest dance because I love to dance. And he's like, you sure? Yes, I want to learn. And then we work on it together. And he laughs and he's so excited. And what he has started to do now, I've noticed a few months now when I'm leaving in the mornings or whatever, he says, Mommy, you look good. I like that outfit. You look, So because we're integrating, we're talking more, he's helping me too. And if I'm going out, he said, no, mommy, go change that.
Right.
So there is that because all I used to, during COVID, I remember when he was on, I would hear the teachers, I'm upstairs and he's downstairs and I'm hearing, Hernandez. And when I run downstairs, Hernandez is fast asleep between two chairs and the teacher is asking a question. Hernandez, and he's not responding. So the thing is, we have to be there for them because I was in my own Zoom, but I heard what was happening. So, wow.
Yes.
Time for your
Yes, so social media seems and gadget seems to be the main culprit here, seeing that in households everyone seem to have some form of gadgets that they're attending to, and it has replaced a lot of things. I just want to let Nigel jump in here to if he has anything to add here before we continue.
Yes, I'm here smiling at what Dr. Hernandez was sharing. In my notes, a lot of what she was just saying is what I had to share. But what I will add a couple of things. We have no influence where we are not. Because we are not present, the things that are present is what has the influence in our families from the parent all the way down to the children's lives. Bottom line, right?
Yeah.
One other thing that I would add, together with, being intentional about that time, is having a clear vision. What do you want your family to look like? What do you want your values to look like? One of my mantras for my life is to begin with the end in mind. That's by Stephen Covey, right? When you're clear on where you desire to be, it makes it so much easier to achieve that desired outcome. So if your family does not have a clear sense of direction, guess what? Any wind of doctrine can come and cause them to move to and fro. So it is important to establish core values, establish desired outcomes, be intentional with the schedule, set specific time. And then the last thing I want to add is the importance, and it goes both ways, but I'm going to speak to the parents first. Learn the language. Every generation has a difference in approach, a difference in how they speak, how they connect. It is important. Yes, I love Paul. Paul in his speaking in First Corinthians, he said, I became all things to all men so as to win some. He recognized the importance of speaking the language of the people he went to serve. It is no different. If we had to go to a French speaking country, we cannot take our English speaking selves and think that because we speak English, we have communicated. It is important to learn the language. And if you don't know the language and you don't have time to learn it, you find someone that knows the language to be the mediator. What are we doing to bridge the gap between the communication of the receiver and the person giving the message? So I believe once we begin to have vision towards shaping these simple strategies, I believe that we'll be a lot more effective in bringing transformation and change.
Yes,
Learn
wonderful. You
language
you
through
have
the
you
medium.
have gone into the second part of our discussion is to show how we cope, and I'm glad that you started with that. But I just want to, for those who are just joining us, whether Facebook or YouTube, we want to welcome you as we're discussing the cultural and social pressures in the family dynamic. And so we have just deliberated and on the challenges and the impact of those pressures. And now we're going to continue to look at how do we cope and how do we find solutions to relieve those families of those pressures. And so Nigel had already started with some of those, and so I will give Jason, the opportunity here to share some of your methods of coping or solutions, especially in the area of overcoming those pressures of financial issues in the family.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. I agree fully with a lot of what Nigel said. You know, how do we cope? I think it's challenging because I think that a big part of the coping is we need to somehow facilitate behavior change. Because a lot of what we were talking about there was, you know, we have internalized and received this external influence, right? Which is, you know, affecting how we eat and how we speak, how we dress, having negative effects. And we have to somehow, you know, help people to reverse that. But, you know, I was telling my son just this week, practice the right things because it's hard to unlearn the things that you've already learned, right? And it takes a lot of effort to change ourselves, right? But I think that that is where the solution is. We need to help people to see value in what we refer to as, you know, referring to the old time days and things like good manners and that kind of thing. We need to protect those values. We need to you know, in sharing with our children, even our own lives, we need to see value in why those things need to come back as part of the society that we are part of today. Why we need to have things like, and I believe it begins at the level of the home in practical ways. For example, we're talking about, just to be very practical in what I'm saying, you know, we're talking about what we eat and all the problems, right? We have to ask ourselves, do we have a fruit tree in our yard? You have 2 fruit trees in your yard? Do you have a home garden, right? How do you begin to kind of combat in a small way, right? Some of these challenges, like, you know, I understand in Barbados, there was something that existed called share pot. I don't know if Nigel might know share pot better than me. Nigel don't know share pot. Nigel too young. But this is now a thing. I believe we had a similar thing in Trinidad, is whereby, you know, when I grew up with my grandparents, they were predominantly agricultural, right? But when my grandfather reap bananas, he give the neighbor, and when the neighbor reap edos or whatever, they share. And it was a more community structure. I remember that houses were being built in that time, right? Whereby you just had to cook food and invite people over, and all the neighbors come over and they help each other and they support each other. This eases some of this economic strain and pressure because we're living in community, right? And I think that some of those values in terms of getting back to living in community, moving away from this kind of individualism and that kind of thing. I think some of these values help us to cope with these pressures, because when the issues that we're facing in our society, the mental health, because of the economic strain, etc., I believe that those community structures used to help with that. Because you know that, you know, it have people right around your neighbor, etc. Now you may not even know your neighbor because everybody hustling, right? And I understand people need to survive, but I'm saying that some of these things are part of the natural coping mechanisms that had existed before, but have eroded because life, quote unquote, has gotten better in meaning that men have access to more things, but it's also become more complicated because now to have a good life, you have to have a vacation in Disneyland, right? When to me, when I was growing up, having a good life was having a bucket of mango to suck, even though that is not so good for your health, right? But having a good life was that. So I'll stop there.
Yes, but how is it, do you cultivate something like that into your family? How do we do something like that into our family? Um, Dr.
Talk
Petra,
about it. Talk about it. You know, you have to, when the children are at the kitchen table, tell them about these things, share these values. Remember, they don't know, you know. So you have to tell them
pass
the
it down.
benefits of these things. Pass it
Yes.
down, model it before them, show them rather than be on the device, right? take some time, carry them outside. Nobody don't play pitch and marbles. I feel like I'm the oldest person in the room, but I'm an old soul. Go outside, show them my children never see
Yes.
marbles and nothing and play pitch. They never had the joy of dirty fingernails playing pitch. You're on your
So
knees.
that means that
You show
it
them
needs to
these
start
things.
with you.
Yes, me and my wife. Me and my wife.
Right? Everybody.
All right.
I would say,
Go-
to add to what both panelists said, togetherness, praying together, laughing together, read to and with your child, get them to understand, language, communication, listen to the music. I listen to the music and I learn the music. Yeah. And it keeps me current because I know when they're talking about ganja or some kind of drug because it's in the music. And so I ask, what is that? And some kid will always tell me what it is. So we don't want to be coded out. We have to understand what they're listening to so that we can provide guidance. Positive reinforcement, no, not bribe. Do not give the children something because you want them to do something, but because it is a reward for doing that which is correct. And that reward can be a hug, it can be something physical if you so desire. You can say over time, what are the things that if you do this, you can get that. And it is positive reinforcement, just like how we go work for a salary. Our salary is supposed to be our positive reinforcement and other things. So we want to be able to do positive reinforcement and not do bribe. Quality time is important. And one of the things, and I think Jason touched on it a little bit, is you see this do as I say, but not as I do thing. Kids laugh at us and they'll do just what we do because we tend to want to bully them to do what we say they should do, but we are not going to model that behavior. We're not going to model it. And so they learn all the negatives a lot of times right there in the family from us. Yes. Openly discuss the things that they're listening to and don't try and just buy food, cook it, involve your family members and try as much as possible to eat together.
Be together. And I believe that is the way, because my question to you would have been, how do we navigate around work-life balance? Because, I'm wondering does that actually exist? Is that balance existing, or is it just something we say?
That balance exists. Yes. I'll use myself, for example. So I am very involved in consultancies, my job, what have you. But there's several ways that I will try hard to weave in quality time. It may very well be in the morning before we head out. If I am taking family members in a car, we talk. We're not on the phone, and I'm not usually going to answer any phone while I'm driving anyways. It's against the law. So time is there where we just chill and talk as we drive. You have to eke out the time. There are times when I know on the weekend that I'm going to go some different place in Jamaica with my family. We take trips, and it could just be a drive out to some place where we've heard of the latest waterfall or something. Just go, just do something together. Find the time, because we find the time to do other things, But when it comes to the family relations, because some of us will say, oh, I grew up and my dad never hugged me at all, and I'm not going to see a psychiatrist, and it didn't bother me. That's you. If your child likes to be hugged, hug him. And this thing about not hugging boys because it's going to turn them into I don't know what. And that's why when they become our husbands, they can be cold and indifferent because they're not used to showing emotions. And yet still we want them to show it. When we're the same ones who say, no, that's not what, that's too girly. You're not to do that. Men don't cry. Boys don't do this. Boys don't do that. And they try to be something tough and indifferent and not having love. So we have to demonstrate and to understand why it is we must ensure that somebody else is not raising our child, or some inanimate object is not raising our child. We have to find the time, and it can be Sunday morning. We can find it. And I know I'm very busy. I study and I do research, but I find the time. And the time that I find, it relaxes me. So I get benefit also. It takes me away from that stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's about discipline and making that time. Very well said. Very instructive as well. Nigel, I know you're gonna come in, but as you're coming in, I also want you to just touch on about a minute or so how, because you're involved very much in the community and serving the community as well. What role does the community play in helping alleviate some of these pressures that the family face from the culture?
All right. Before I respond to that, I just wanted to give a 30-second testimony to the value of what Dr. Hernandez just said. My ministry has been running for quite some time, and we've only had one major unsuccess, as you would call it, right? And this one of our young men is currently in prison because of a few seconds of making one bad choice. And his parent would have come in subsequent to that and been a great part of the journey of our parent sessions. And the gist of her story, because she's a very successful here in Barbados, the gist of her story was that if she had just given him 15 minutes a day, it would have made a difference. No, she makes sure when the prison calls her and says, will you accept this call? She is available. Right? And I'm sharing this to say, let us not wait till something tragic happens to then want to make the time. Let us prioritize making the time. Because one common thing we would have been hearing thus far is the value, the importance of time. And to respond to the question as it relates to the community, I do not believe that the community should have ever left the role or the position of being part of a family. I guess because of modernization, the changing in values, things would have shifted. Right now, we have so many parachurch organizations, so many charities, so many community groups forming, now being the ones instilling the values that would have originally come from the home. I was recently in St. Lucia, and there is this gentleman who recognized, he used to be a pro athlete for St. Lucia. He recognized that there are a lot of young men in the community just idle doing anything. So he was like, hey, I'm going to start a football club. Same thing with here. We have Fabian Sargent, who started his Safe Zone. We have Dean Squires, who has Combined Faith. We have Arnold Gosling, Echo Nation, and we can go on and we can go on. All of these parachurch organizations, community clubs, charities, these are showing us the role of the community is vital. There are times, and it actually brings us back to how it was yesterday. It may not look the same because, again, with changing times, we have to change along with it. But the community is vital. There are things that the parent, whether because of time, lack of knowledge, skill sets, resources, these are all areas that the community can step up and add value to the growth of a child. So I definitely believe
So
we need
that
to
would
get back to the
mean,
community.
yeah, so that would mean parents or guardians taking the opportunity to go to let them children be enrolled in those events or to participate in those events so that they can benefit as well, especially in a time when, as you mentioned earlier, that, the culture is more, you see now more of a single parent type of household, and so forth. So it's essential for them to reach out to those communities so that they can benefit and alleviate some of those pressures. I saw a question that there was a question online about what is our culture. And Nigel, I believe that's a Barbadian asking that question. So I will let you just answer that in about 30 seconds or so.
So I am CSME. Even though I was born in Barbados, I was raised in St. Lucia. So when Jason asked about the Barbadian saying, I was like, the only thing that came to my mind was what we do in St. Lucia. We call it a coup de main, where persons come together over one massive pot, and the community serves. I I am. I don't think I'll be the best person to tell you about the
But what
Barbadian
I
culture.
can say is that when I've listened to each of you and I've
Mhm.
listened to different persons, I realize that as Caribbean, we do have similar culture. And Dr. Spencer, she had mentioned some of those early on. All right, so as we wind down, we have just about 4 minutes or so, and as we ease off the pedal, and I will want you to kindly give the audience a short, in short, a keepsake or a nugget that will help to guide them through this journey or help them to steer around the cultural and social pressures that they may face within their families. So I will start with Jason Cotton, and you will go ahead and share your nugget or takeaway for the audience.
Yeah, thanks. So I would say my nugget is, I think all of the panelists have said it. There are intense social and cultural pressures affecting the family. And I think that one of the things I'm taking away is that, we all have a collective responsibility to counter this culture, this pressure coming against the family. I think everyone here who is listening, we must each decide personally what we are equipped and able to do. I believe we could all play a part. And what I'm saying to all of us is, whatever part you could play, you just play that part. As Nike would say, just do it, because it would mean something to the lives that you can touch. That's it. Thank you.
And Dr. Joan?
Ah, live, live, love, laugh. Live your life in such a way that your children will be proud of mommy, proud of daddy, regardless of what you do, to make them happy, because they are going to understand that you love them, you care for them, you really wanted to have them, and so you bond with them, even regardless of the type of family that you're in, because sometimes that's not what we want. We do not necessarily want to be in a single parent family, but that's what we're in now, and we're going to make the best of it. So we're going to rally together, we're going to laugh together, we're going to live life together, we're going to love, and we're going to communicate and care for each other. Communication is extremely important. It's important that your kids understand you and you understand them. So just relax, try your best as you go about hustling, because that's the kind of world that we live in. You're trying to make ends meet, as you say. You're trying to navigate the culture. You're trying to understand what is appropriate and so on, but do it together as a family. Find time for each other and just love, a lot of love. And I will just add to, a family that prays together usually stays together. Yeah.
Thank you. Nigel?
Yes, please. I will close by saying this. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People, your family, your community, your co-workers, they will only embrace your influence when they know that you care. Or I should say they will embrace it even more. All right. So let's think about the time you spend. Your time can equate to influence. Have a vision. Don't just go with the flow. Know what you desire and go after it.
Wonderful. And I know we could have said so much more because this topic is wide, and but we just have an hour, and I hope that as we come to the end of this discussion on how to manage or tackle cultural and social pressures in the family, I trust that you, the audience, would have found this conversation helpful and that you would have taken away some of those rich nuggets shared by our panelists today. I would like to thank Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, Mr. Nigel Jules, and Mr. Jason Cotton for coming to share this wisdom with us. Thank you. You gave your various perspective, and we are grateful for that. And I want to say thank you to the viewers also for joining us. Remember also to share the social media links. You never know whose family might be rescued by listening to these conversations and Family Fest. I find them to be very instructive, very poignant, very necessary. And join us again on Thursday for another enriching discussion. I am Angelina Cotton once again, and I do hope that you have a good evening. Thank you all.
Thank you too.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around. Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness.